Welcome ladies and gentlemen to another Unity tutorial. This time I will be showing you how to create a first person camera controller and how to move the player. First of all, set up your file like I show here. Type in the project name and then select the location, while making sure to select 3D also. Once you've done that, just go ahead and click create project and it will load you right into the Unity editor. The first thing you want to do, is save our scene. So go to file and click save scenes and name the scene scene 01. Once you've done that, go ahead and click save and you'll notice that the scene appears in the assets folder. Then after this, what we want to do is to click on the main camera in our hierarchy view and go over to the inspector, and where it says camera, click next to clear flags and change it to solid color. Then change the background color to a dark grey. After this, what we want to do is move the directional light out of the way from our scene, as it doesn't need to be in the way. The only thing that matters for directional lights is the rotation. So change the Y position to around 15 so it's high enough out of the way. Let's go ahead and set up an area for the player to move around. Right click in a hierarchy and select empty. In the inspector, rename it platform. Then right click in the inspector again. This time select 3D object and choose cube. Rename the cube to ground. As this will be the ground, we will want to make it bigger. Change the scale of the transform to 50 on both X and Z. Then set the Y position to minus 0.5. Make sure the ground object is a child of the platform object in the hierarchy. Drag it onto platform to do this. However, make sure the transform position of the platform is all set to 0 first. Now, right click on the ground and select duplicate. Rename the copy to wall. We now need to change the scale to make it look like a wall. Just do what I've done here and then make 3 more copies of the wall and position them all around the edges of the platform. Then when you have finished, you should have an area for the player to move around just like this. In the hierarchy, you can minimize the platform now to make it look a bit tidier. Just click on the little triangle beside platform, and when you click on the platform you'll see you can move everything at once because they're all children. So right click in the hierarchy to create the player as a 3D object and select capsule. So this will be the player. And for the transform you can just reset it so it's at 0 and change the Y position to 1. That way it looks like the player is just standing on the ground. Once you've done that, you want to rename it, so change capsule to player. Press enter, and we also have a capsule collider here, but we don't need that in this tutorial, so just remove the component by clicking the gear icon. and add another component, a physics component, which is character controller. and you'll see that appears in the hierarchy now as well. As we are making a first person game, we need to make sure that the camera is attached to the player and positioned so that it looks like we are looking at things through the player's eyes. So what you want to do is click on the main camera in the hierarchy and go ahead and drag the camera onto the player object. And if you look at the transform for the camera, things are a bit off. So click on the gear icon and reset it so that it's inside the player. And it does look to be inside the player now, but it's a bit too low down. So you want to drag it up a bit, and setting the Y position to 0.45 seems to be about just right. And then once you've done that, you can check it on the camera preview in the corner or go to the game view and you'll see how that looks, which is a bit better. Now we can get into the fun part, which is writing the scripts to control the player and the camera. Let's start with the camera. We can write a script that moves it around like I'm showing here. So to do this, right click in the assets folder at the bottom and select create and choose C# script. Rename this camera underscore control. And when you've renamed it, just double click on it and it will open up the script for editing. So the first thing you want to do when you open the script is to get rid of the start method. So just take that away because we won't be needing it this time. Then start typing in public enum rotation axis. And inside that we will have mouse x equals 1, then comma, and mouse y equals 2. And those will be the two options we have for moving the camera on the x and y axis. Once you've typed that though, you want to initialize it by having public rotation axis equals rotation axis dot mouse x. Then type public float sense horizontal and set it to 10.0f. This is the sensitivity when looking around horizontally. Then do public float sense vertical and set it to the same thing, and that's obviously the sensitivity of looking vertically. Then public float underscore rotation x equals 0. That's just the vertical angle that the player is looking. In the update method, type if axis equals to rotation axis dot mouse x. And if it does, we want to set our transform dot rotate. So transform dot rotate 0, input dot get axis mouse x. So we're looking for input, which is mouse x. And multiply it by sense horizontal. Then put a comma and put 0. We also want to check for mouse y. So else if axis equals to rotation axis dot mouse y. And when we've done that, we want to change rotation X. So underscore rotation X minus equals input dot get axis mouse Y, and multiply it by the vertical sensitivity, so sense vertical. And this increments the vertical angle based on the mouse's movement. Then type float rotation Y equals transform dot local Euler angles dot Y. It keeps the Y angle the same, so there's no horizontal rotation. And then transform dot local Euler angles equals new vector 3 underscore rotation X, rotation Y, and 0. So this creates a new vector for the stored rotation values. Make sure you save the script before going back to Unity, and then click on the player object and drag your newly created script into the inspector. You'll notice the axis here is set to mouse X. If you click play, you'll be able to move left and right and look around the scene. It's because it's set to mouse X. Can't move up and down, but if you go back and change axis to mouse Y and then go ahead and give it a try, you can look up and down, but there is an issue. You can keep moving continuously up or down, which is a problem, and there is a way that we can fix that within the script. It doesn't make sense to continuously move up and down like it does left and right. So if we go back into our camera underscore control script and just back up where we set our public variables, type in public float minimum vert, which is the minimum vertical angle. So public float minimum vert equals minus 45.0 f, and also public float maximum vert, and that will be 45.0 f. So that's positive and negative for both sides, up and down. Once we've set those, go into our update script and under the else if, where we decide on what mouse Y does, type underscore rotation X equals mathf.clamp underscore rotation X and minimum vert, comma maximum vert, and close it off. So mathf.clamp basically sets rotation X to either minimum vert or maximum vert. It doesn't let it go beyond those. So yeah, it clamps the vertical angle within the minimum and maximum limits. And make sure you save it again. And once we go back here now, we'll be able to see the differences with the script, but make sure you save it first. And click on play. Notice now that you can only look up and down by 45, and you can see it there in the inspector that it just sticks at 45. Let's see something else here as well that might be a bit unusual. If we drag out our game view and put it a bit to the side so we can see both the game and scene, click play. And you'll notice when you look up and down, the player's entire body is moving, which obviously doesn't really make sense. We don't want the whole body to move, we just want the view. So the reason for this is that the script is completely moving the player's angle. but we just want the camera to move. So set the player's axis to mouse X so they can look left and right, because the whole body should move when looking left and right. And then drag the script also onto the main camera and set it to mouse Y. So only the camera will look up and down, but the player's whole body will look left and right. Let's drag out our game view again. And we're going to try and see what this looks like now with those changes. Click play and let's see. So if you look there in the background at the scene, when we're looking up and down, the camera is moving but not the player's body. And whenever we turn, it's the actual player when we're going left and right. Which works much better. Obviously we don't want the whole player's body to be moving. Okay, so go ahead and save your scene up until this point. And next what we want to do is to move the player. To make the player walk, we need to create another script. So right click in the assets folder and click create a C# script. Then name this player_movement. Once you've named it, double click on the script to open it in the editor. Let's start by setting some variables. At the top of the script, type public float speed equals 6.0f. This is the value that determines how fast the player can move. Next, we type private character controller _ char cont. This is used to gain control of the player's character controller component. In the start method, type _char cont equals get component character controller. This is to initialize the character controller to that of the player. Then in the update method we can write the code that will actually move the player. Start by typing float delta x equals input.getAxis horizontal and multiply it by our speed. So this gets the horizontal input, which is always the A and D keys or the left and right arrow keys. Then float delta z equals input.getAxis vertical multiply by speed. Next, we have vector3 movement equals new vector3, delta x, 0 on the y, and delta z on the z axis. Then set movement equal to vector3.clump magnitude, movement and speed. So it clumps the movement to that of the speed, so you can't go any quicker. Then we have movement times equals time.delta time, which fixes the speed at which the player moves so it doesn't change between each computer or for different frame rates. Then type in movement equals transform direction and in brackets movement. And after that it's _char cont.move movement. While this would allow the player to move around the script, it alone isn't enough. We need some code for some form of gravity to keep the player on the ground. So if you go back to the top and add there, public float gravity equals minus 9.8 F. And then in the update method, add movement.y equals gravity. Save the script and go back to Unity. Click on the player in the hierarchy and drag the new script onto the inspector. Now click play and you should be able to move around the scene and also look around at the same time. And that seems like we actually have a solid first person controller now that you can use in a game. You'll be able to look around and walk around too. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Remember to subscribe for more tutorials in future. And if you think this could help out anyone else, then make sure to share it with them too. Thanks again. Bye.